What's going on? My God, we're live. Brilliant, Joel. What's up, you guys? We're live here for One Royal Way at the trade deadline. Last 30 minutes. I butchered the living crap out of that introduction, but there's no going back now, folks. Appreciate you guys hanging out here on a Monday afternoon, whether you're catching this at the end of your work day on your commute home, or if you're a work from home like I was today. Hope you guys are hanging out. Appreciate you guys chilling with me here. Not as eventful as last year's deadline for the Royals, considering they bought at last year's deadline. Very quiet for the most part. Obviously, the Lane Thomas move, I can get into that a little bit. That was from a couple of days ago. They traded Chris Bubich, which I was not expecting at all. I was pretty surprised by that subtraction. And they made a small move for a reliever that had been DFA'd by the Phillies today. So that's all that's happened so far. John Schreiber is still a Royal with 28 minutes to go. Starling Marte is still a Royal with 28 minutes to go, and among others that may or may not get moved between now and then. And we'll talk about any moves that happen across the league. We can talk about some of the stuff that has happened today across the league as well. So before we get into all that, this show, as always, brought to you by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our partners in Possible here at KCSN. Can't thank them enough for their support over the last couple of years, being able to do this show. And if you're watching this video live, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Helps this channel grow, helps more people see this. If you're on the audio side listening to this after the fact, really appreciate it as well. And leave a 5-star review. Again, that helps the channel grow, helps more people see this content that are Royals fans out there. Okay. So I'll start with the moves that have happened. We'll start there and kind of work our way through. I'll start with the Lane Thomas move from Saturday. He was pulled in the 5th inning of the game against the Colorado Rockies as the game was happening. It was a hug watch situation. But it found out not long after he was pulled from the game that he was traded to the Atlanta Braves for 2 pitchers, one being Lucas Braun. I'll start with him, a right-handed starting pitcher in AAA. He's 24 years old. This season spent about half the year in AA, and then his 10 starts now, or 10 games, 9 starts in AAA. On the season so far, between the 2 stops, 94 1/3 innings, a 3.53 ERA, 82 strikeouts to 27 walks. A guy that, according to the scouting reports, and if you care about prospect rankings and those things, Pipeline had him at 8. I think Baseball America had him at 18, so a little bit of a disparity. But the bottom line, he kind of feels to me like a little bit of a Stephen Kolek, or maybe like a great value Stephen Kolek, a guy that's going to sink it, going to cut it in the low to mid 90s. Got a couple of different breaking balls to field to throw all 5 pitches. A guy that's going to probably be a back end-ish rotation guy, and someone's going to have the opportunity to pitch for Kansas City this year, given all of the injuries. I would imagine that he gets at least a little cup of coffee in September or something like that. Just see what you have it. A guy that, it's kind of what I thought the Royals would do. Attack in this trade deadline, at least with what they've currently done. They would go and try and get guys that are upper minors, in the upper minors depth at a minimum, just to try and supplement something, because most of the talent and upside that the Royals have in their system right now is low A, high A, and some guys in the Dominican Summer League, but who knows what that even looks like at this point. Really, it's pretty devoid of any talent at AA and at AAA, mainly on the pitching side. So getting a guy like Braun that you can send to Omaha, let Johnson, the pitching coach there, work with him, tweak a couple of things. I'm not worried about some of the stats that come out of the PCL, or I guess the international now. Either way, AAA, not as concerned about that. Stephen Kolek was a good major league pitcher. He's putting up a 6 ERA in AAA. Like, you got to take some of this with a grain of salt, given the level of competition that sits in that sits in AAA right now. So just tweak some stuff, see what they can do to help develop him, bring him into the system, and then let him loose and see what happens. The other guy they got out of this was Carter Holton, a previously, I think he was a second-round pick out of Vanderbilt a couple of years ago. Spent 2024. He got a little bit of time in A-ball, but not much. And then missed 2025 with some injuries. He had some injuries in college as well. But this year, it's 41 and 2/3 innings for a lefty. And it's not ideal. I mean, but he's also coming back from Tommy John. So, again, kind of a grain of salt. It's 41 strikeouts to 16 walks and a little over a 5 ERA thereabout. It's a 5.08 ERA, predominantly spent in low A. And he's 23 years old in low A, but he's also coming off an arm injury. So I think they're just kind of slow playing it a little bit. Maybe you send him to Quad Cities and see what you have. This is more of a lottery ticket, a little more of a throw-in. I don't know a ton about him. We'll see what he does whenever he gets to the Royals farm and reports. But on the whole, to get Braun and Holton, and they also traded Bailey Falter as well and got off of that money. So that maybe diminished some of the return, but you got off of the money that you gave Bailey Falter. So I guess that's a little bit of a win in itself. But predominantly, this was Lane Thomas, the value that you got back for Lane Thomas. And for that to be the case, to get a close to big league ready, about as close as you're going to get, arm that you feel like can be a 4 or a 5 at his peak for a rental platoon outfielder, it's pretty good value. I thought they did well with that. That when we had Patrick Brennan on last week, when we looked at the transaction game with Jordan and Josh a couple of weeks ago, a guy that was in the 10 to 15 range was about what we looked at as requisite value for Lane Thomas, and that's about what the Royals got. So I think, to me, that was a fine move, and I'm interested to see once Braun comes in, what this ends up looking like. Okay, we do have a couple of moves across the league that have gone on just during that little bit. Foster Griffin going to the Cleveland Guardians. That's interesting. Coming back to the division. That's intriguing, yeah. And then Jeff Hoffman of nearly had the World Series, 2 strikes, 2 outs, gives up a home run to Miguel Rojas. He's going to the Minnesota Twins. Minnesota's buying a little bit here. So that's very interesting. Foster Griffin to Cleveland I despise only because I know that they're going to continue to unlock whatever Foster Griffin has figured out. If you would have told me a couple of years ago that Foster Griffin would be a mainstay deadline asset, that would have been shocking. Old friend Foster Griffin. But that's so far removed. Like, it's really hard for me to, even be mad at the Royals organization at that point. Because, for one thing, the pitching dev in the organization when he was there was not good. And then he did make it up to the big leagues, and then he blew out. And then he had to go to, I think it was to Korea or the MP. It was either the MPB or the KBO. I don't quite remember. But once he got there, then he figured it out and then came back to the big leagues and became an all-star this year. And I think that's awesome. Like, that, it shows that development in time, it's not linear when it comes to, this kind of talent for the big leagues. And I'm happy that he got it figured out. I wish he could have been in Kansas City. Obviously was not to be. Until we get another move, like I said, we got 20 minutes to go until the deadline. Still no news on John Schreiber or Starling Marte. The other 2 guys are like rental type pieces that I think could get moved. And to be clear as well, like, the deadline is at 5, and as long as the deadline, like the move is in by 4:59, then Central, then you're good. But sometimes it takes a little bit for it to get approved by the league office and for all the people that have all the sources and all the information to get the information. So beyond 5, like 5:15. Last year it was like around 5:15, almost 5:20, that we found out the Royals had traded for Mike Yastrzemski last year, because that deal was right up on the deadline. I think it was at 4:58 or 4:59 was when the paperwork got submitted. So we'll see. If we don't see a John Schreiber move at 459, then we need to watch until like 510 to kind of figure out, where they're at. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. I mean, those guys have to be, in my opinion, they have to be moved. Just as their rentals just get it done. I'm wondering if we do see anything kind of wild in the next couple of next 20 minutes or so. Do we see a crazy bombshell? I saw that the Mariners had checked in on Mason Miller with the Padres, but seems like the asking price was Cade Anderson, the Mariners' #1 prospect, so I don't think that will happen. Elliot Ramos to the Yankees. The Yankees actually did something today. The big move, obviously, Adley Rutschman from Baltimore to Boston for a bunch of prospects. I mean, that was a hefty haul that Baltimore got, and that Boston gave up. But Boston gets a catcher that maybe they're able to unlock something for the pedigree that Adley has created. From a prospect to then what he was his first couple of years in the big leagues. Obviously fallen off a little bit, had some injuries, but maybe new lease on life, change of scenery, helps him kind of figure things out there. Marcelo Meyer to San Francisco was interesting. That was for a 1-for-1 for a reliever and Eric Miller. That again, that might be a change of scenery situation. I'll be really interested to see that. So the other trade that the Royals made that was like a sell of the sell variety was one I was not expecting given the injury. But Chris Bubic traded to the Dodgers for a reliever, Carlos Duran. But again, the fact that Bubic was moved while he's on the 60-day IL, I know the last report was that he's ramping up his throwing, and according to the reporters on the Dodgers, and they expect him to be ready to go at the end of August. So I do think, they clearly feel good about the medicals. Otherwise, they wouldn't have traded a big league adjacent AAA, pitcher for him. And I know the Dodgers have a glut of assets, but they could have given the Royals a bucket of balls for Bubic, and I wouldn't have blinked at it. But to go and get a guy like Duran is at least interesting. And for Bubic, if he's ready to go, at the end of August, beginning of September, he goes into their bullpen as a lefty that they don't have to rely on Vesia as much. He can go in there with Jack Dreyer as well. It really is just, for the Dodgers. And if he doesn't throw for the Dodgers, it's no skin off their back. Who cares? They have 12 guys that they can go out there and throw on any given night and shove, right? And for Bubic, it's an opportunity to go and try and legitimately go win a ring and going into a contract year, going into an offseason where he's going to be a free agent. If he goes and has an awesome World Series, then that could make him some money, right? And for sure, and to get anything for Chris Bubic, given that he has not pitched since May, like mid-May-ish, I mean, that's a win in and of itself. And Duran is at least intriguing. He made his debut with the A's last year. He got blown up in like a third of an inning. It didn't go well. But this year in the Pacific Coast League, which is like pitching on the moon in certain situations, given some of the teams in that league, he's got 61 strikeouts in 42 innings. Walks are the concern. But a guy that throws 96 to 99, average 96 to 97, can top out around 99, 100 with good whiff and good chase rates. It's at least something. It's a dart throw for a bullpen that needs it. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Steven Cruz. Like, they're not exactly the same, but 6'7", big arm, strikeout type stuff and walk concerns. It's almost like a clone of Steven Cruz, but give me that opportunity to at least figure out if I can get that guy to throw strikes with regularity. And if he's able to do that and limit some of the walk stuff, Cruz has done a better job of it. It's not perfect, but he has done a better job limiting walks, and the strikeouts have increased as well. So it's worth at least for this year and maybe next year. Shoot, Give Carlos Duran some opportunity because he provides something in this bullpen that they don't have a lot of. The velocity to go along with swing and miss and strikeout stuff. Yes, he has the walk concerns that a lot of guys in this bullpen do, but he at least has the strikeout stuff alongside Cruz that make you, you're willing to live with a little bit of the walk stuff because of the strikeouts, right? Like in the case of a guy like Lucas Erceg, he's walking the world and he can't strike anyone out. Alex Lang, he can get some strikeouts, but it's not to the level of a Cruz, and he walks a bunch of guys. So, like John Schreiber has some walk concerns, and he doesn't really strike much out. You at least have some strikeouts with Carlos Duran, so it's at least intriguing in that regard. And then there was a minor move made earlier by the Royals. They got Nolan Hoffman, who was designated for assignment by Philadelphia today. And they traded Manuel Colon, who was just called up from the complex to low A this week, made one appearance for the Fireflies. So that's really not much of an anything trade. Hoffman's like 28 years old. He's only had, I don't even think you can call it a cup of coffee and maybe like an espresso shot in the big leagues. It's like 5 2/3 innings in his big league career so far. He has 4 2/3 innings this year at 3.86 ERA, couple strikeouts. But again, it's really the Royals are running bullpen tryouts the rest of the season, and to me, that is completely fine. I have no concern with giving him an opportunity. Again, given the guys that we have seen in this bullpen, I don't care if try anybody, right? And I think that is perfectly fine if we want to get. And again, and if it's nothing, then who cares? You didn't really give it much for him. I kind of look at it like I look at the Nate Pearson move, the Easton McGee move. Like, give them opportunities, and if it's not good, well, it's not. You really didn't give up much. You give a little bit of cash or a low A or high A reliever. Like that's fine. Got 12 minutes until the deadline. No moves that Jeff Passan has broke yet, so we still got a little more time to figure out where we're at. Before we move forward, do need to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This has been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Alan and I purchased the store in 2023. Alan and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Alan grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
David Starnes Allstate Insurance is a proud partner of KC Sports Network, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. If you are looking for new coverage or something that better suits your home, auto, health, or any of your other insurance needs, give Dave and his team a call. Elevate your coverage and be worry-free with David Starnes Allstate Insurance.
You know that moment, the moment you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car or at the gas station 3 states away. Well, I've been there too. But then I found Shady Rays, and it changed the game. These sunglasses are made for real life. Seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And here's the wild part. If you lose them or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now I actually wear my sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever. They need sunglasses. They have sunglasses for golfing, fishing, hiking, and biking, even sunglasses for kids. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use code KCSN50 for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. So I guess since we broke for the commercial there, Lars Nootbaar to the Arizona Diamondbacks. So the Cardinals make a couple moves. They sold off Dustin May and JoJo Romero earlier today to the Brewers. So that automatically means Dustin May is going to be awesome. A guy that I've always enjoyed watching pitch, and I'm sure the Brewers are going to unlock something gnarly with with Dustin May with an arsenal that is pretty filthy to begin with. Still got about 10 minutes. No news on the front of John Schreiber or Starling Marte or Daniel Lynch or Alex Lang or anything like that. And I'm not throwing Waka and Lugo into this conversation because it was reported yesterday by Bob Nightingale and Mark Feinsand and Ken Rosenthal. Like, there's enough folks around that have said the Royals are not trading those guys. They're holding on to them. They've rebuffed offers in the report yesterday by Nightingale, believing they need them to compete next year. Now, I'll say this on the front part, that the Royals have had so many injuries on the pitching side that are like long-term injuries with okay, sorry, before I do that, Josh IQ, who's always in here, where do you think Braun sneaks into our top 10? Okay, so if you want to use Pipeline, just because that's an easily accessible resource, I believe they had him like 11th, I want to say. Let me look here if they have it over here. Yeah, Lucas Braun ended up at number 11 in the latest update for the system. And this will all get shuffled around. Though I think they'll do another update post deadline, potentially. So they have that. I understand the angle, of they have so many long-term injuries to their pitching staff in Reagan's, potentially Stephen Kolek. We haven't really heard anything on that front. Luinder Avila just hit the shelf, forearm tightness. That is usually a precursor to an elbow injury. You'd never like to see that. Ryan Berger will be coming back from Tommy John. Ben Kudrna, who hasn't obviously debuted in the big leagues yet, but he had an elbow injury. Like, they've had so many, like, they've just been hit by that bug so many times that, like, you got to have somebody to throw innings. I understand that side of it totally, right? And I'm sure that other teams that are in a similar position would have to be kind of forced to do the same thing, right? So, and that is not a defense of this, but, like, it is understanding the situation of, if Cole Reagans was healthy, I think we see some moves, right? If Berger was, at least healthy enough to go back and was going back and forth, but he was pitching. If Kolek was healthy, like, I think they make some of these moves, but it has been almost necessitated by the fact that they have all of these guys hurt. That said, this feels like a fool's errand. I don't see the path for this team to be legitimately competitive in 27. I just don't. When I've talked about that's what they are going to do, or that's what they are trying to do, that is me reading the tea leaves to their decisions. That is not my opinion. That is not me saying that I think they need to be, or that they should be, or I want them to do that, right? Like, I want that to be separate, and I hope you guys have understood the context with which I have talked about those things. If that's the path that they're going to go down, holding on to Michael Wacha, who will be 36 next season, and Seth Lugo, who has a 4.2 ERA this year and is going to be 37 next year, and you're going to tie up about $30-some-odd million into two mid to upper 30 starting pitchers, then you had better be right. You have to. There is no option. There is no, well, you know what? We won 78 games. We were in it till September. No. It's make the playoffs, or people are going to start losing jobs. And you had better be correct. I think it is foolish to believe that right now this team is going to be competitive in 2027. If we play baseball in 2027, which is the other part of this, you have to rebuild essentially an entire bullpen outside of Daniel Lynch and Steven Cruz. Because Alex Lang is probably a non-tender. I mean, he just hasn't pitched. I don't know what to make of Lucas Erceg anymore. He looks like a shell of himself compared to what he was a couple of years ago, even last year to some degree. Even we saw at the beginning of the season this year, just so vastly different. Obviously, Schreiber's going to be gone, whether they trade him in the next 5 minutes or he hits free agency. You're going to have him. If you hold on to Daniel Lynch, then he's going to be around. But there's like 4 or 5 spots you need to fit in that bullpen. You're going to have a few internal candidates to go to the bullpen as starters or whatever the case. And you're probably going to need a couple of bats, and you're going to need a couple starting pitchers because of the injuries. And they're going to have to open up the pocketbook, or they're going to have to understand they can't hoard prospects. And they're going to have to make a trade that they're probably not comfortable with to go and get legitimate arms. If you go into next year, assuming the health of Avila, you have at least 4 starters with Waka, Lugo, Noah Cameron, and Avila, and then you figure out the 5th starter. You can find someone to do that until Berger comes back, which would be Memorial Day at the best, which would be for Reagan's like the All-Star break. Kolek, we still don't know. They're still waiting on the second opinion there. It is such a narrow path, and they are threading a needle that is so fine. I don't think they're going to hit it. It feels like what we saw with some of the end of Dayton more, where they're holding on to guys and they're trying to say they're going to be competitive. And I understand that that is what they need to say. And I know no one wants to hear that. But when you have a guy like Bobby and you have this young group of players that have all this talent that you feel like are a part of a core, they can go make a playoff run. They're going to do everything in their power to try and make the playoffs, whether we think it's foolish or not. That is what they're going to say. That's what all these front offices say. But it's a matter of whether it is feasible or not. And right now, I don't think it is. I think their best path is to just not even punt, but just retool this thing as best you can by trying to go and get something for Waka, right? Because and get if people were really like, if there were teams calling about Seth Lugo and they weren't going to take on the whole contract, but they were willing to take on some of it, you should be thanking them. And then you go and you try and build a farm system that is getting better, but it's certainly not close. This was a huge, huge, huge spot to go and try and really, even if it means taking a step back in 27 to then really be able to push forward in 28 and beyond. I just don't see the path. And it's getting narrower and narrower. This offseason is massive. If there is an offseason, next season is huge for the decision makers, given the state of we are not trading those guys. And you hope, and you have to hope and pray that those guys are still going to be as good, that Waka is still going to be able to give you 180, 170, 180 innings at a 3.5 ERA, 36. Like, that's a tough gamble. And since Seth Lugo signed his contract, his ERA has been around 5. Like, he's kind of shown you who he is right now. Noah Cameron's been better the last couple of starts, but he's been really up and down this year. And then you have all the injuries to other guys on top of those. It's a really narrow path. And if that's the path they're going to go down, they have to be right, and there's no other options otherwise. And we'll see what happens. It's officially 5 o'clock Central. The deadline has officially passed. We will see what moves are made beyond that. I remember a few years ago, Scott Barlow, we thought stayed. We thought Whit Merrifield had stayed beyond the deadline a couple of years ago when he was traded late. Scott Barlow was official about 10 to 15 minutes after the deadline. No news on John Schreiber. No news on Starling Marte or anyone else at this time. Let's see here. The Guardians made an interstate trade with the Reds for Nathaniel Lowe. Looks like I saw Victor Vodnik, a hard-throwing reliever for the Rockies, to the Marlins for Connor Norby and Aiden May. That's an interesting one. Marlins, they're trying to stay in it. That's pretty interesting. And also a weird deadline for the Tigers. Oh, Mize to the Padres. That's interesting. I haven't seen that one pop up yet. Kirby Yates to the Pirates. couple of years ago, that would have been sick. I don't know what Kirby Yates has left in him now. I don't even know where is he with the Rangers? I don't even know where Kirby Yates is pitching these days. To be honest, I kind of forgot he was still league. Oh, he's with the Angels. Okay. He's bounced around a lot in the last couple of years. I'd kind of lost track. He's 39. Man, long ways off from him being awesome with the Padres about 7 years ago or so. That's sub 4 ERA, for a guy that's still kicking around at 39. I wonder if my Twitter is just not going here. The Pirates require right-handed reliever Lake Backer from the Marlins. The Marlins get one reliever. Yeah, the Padres come hell or high water. They'll do whatever they can to beat to do what they can to get to the Dodgers. There it is for John Heyman. I think I might or may not have Heyman muted, so I think that's why I missed that one. On deadline day I might need to undo that. Padres acquire Casey Mize from the Tigers. But that's the only two moves that the Tigers made. That is very interesting. That the only moves the Tigers make are for the two pitchers. They didn't do anything else. I find that to be odd. And it's not like the Tigers need to go full teardown, but felt like they probably needed to make another move or two to just build this thing back up. I'm not exactly sure what Robbie Wright has left in the tank. Like he's been good, and if nothing else, you feel like he's going to give you at least 5 or 6 innings most starts. He's actually been a heck of a lot better than I thought. But to be fair, it's a 3.08 ERA and a 4.36 FIP. And he's given him 122 innings. He was 180 innings last year for the Giants, about a 3.6. So, yeah, they're going to do what they can to try and go. I mean, they're going to do whatever they can to go for it. And they're holding on to Mason Miller, it appears. If anybody sees anything on Schreiber or Marte as we're going through this, throw it in the chat. I would appreciate it in case I miss it, but I'm feverishly replaying or refreshing Twitter here. Three prospects going back to Miami for Lake Backer. I watch a lot of baseball, you guys. The name Lake Backer does not ring a bell, admittedly. Like a mid to high 3s ERA guy. Doesn't strike a ton out. Some walk issues. But hey, credit to Pirates, man. They made a couple of moves to try and go for it. I mean, give them some credit. They made some moves to try and do something. Wonder what, because Mize is a free agent after the year. So I think this is a rental. Yeah, he'll be a free agent at the end of this year. So that's just a pure rental. Can't imagine it's too high. Trevor Rogers not going anywhere, and I believe is he a rental for the Orioles? Yeah, he is a free agent at the end of this. That's interesting. Hold rental. the Marlins had an odd one. The Blue Jays were interesting today, trading Gossman, and then they get Jose Soriano, and they trade away Varsho, who had control, I believe. Did Varsho have control, or was he a rental? I feel like Varsho's a free agent after this year as well. Okay, so they actually, I think, middled it pretty well. I was confused by the Varsho one initially because I thought he had another year, but he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year at 30. So they trade away Gossman and Varsho and get back Jose Soriano, who's got 2.5 years, and Spencer Arrighetti for the Astros, who has 4 years. So that, I think, that's actually a pretty good way to attack the deadline if you're the Blue Jays, who are not – they've been underachieving this year. Obviously, Vladdy's been a big part of that. To trade your rentals, so you're probably not going to re-sign anyway, or you probably didn't have interest in re-signing, and then going and getting guys that are, have some control beyond this year is a pretty interesting way to go about it. Looks like nothing else for Seattle. Okay, the Padres got Casey Mize and Gage Workman for Cash Mayfield and Jackson Wolf. Cash Mayfield, an Oklahoma product, I believe. He's from Oklahoma. I don't think he was a high school out of the University of Oklahoma, but was not University of Oklahoma. Okay, so Zach Neto and Reed Detmer stay with the Angels. There was that report that the Angels had traded Detmer to the Cubs, but that did not happen. I'll be curious what the story is there because that got pretty widely reported. Then it looks like the Cubs had pivoted and they took Braxton Garrett, who's got 3 years of control from the Marlins, who, again, kind of had a weird deadline. Because they traded some dudes with control, but then they got a couple of guys back. They straddled selling and buying in kind of a weird spot. Not much for Lars Nootbaar, Diamondbacks, and Cardinals. Trade Daniel Egan, Ruben Santana, and a player to be named later. So not a ton there. Sorry for the delay in speaking there for a second. Not much going on. It looks like the deals are kind of winding down here. The Rangers really didn't do much. Josh Smith to the Blue Jays was it. I think they approached DeGrom about. Yeah, Josh IQ, I think that's the best way to put it. Disappointed, but 2027 be the make or break year. Yeah. I mean, that's what they've telegraphed to me with this is, again, I said it earlier. If that's the direction they're going to go, and they're not going to make a significant move, to try and just retool whatever, build the farm system, sell high on a couple of guys, then they better be right. Did the Royals not trade Waka from Aiden Whitting 970? Did the Royals not trade Waka because they want to compete in 27? Or did they not trade him because offers were too little? I think it was that they feel like they can compete 27. Now, again, whether you think that's a good idea or not is a conversation that will have to take place next year when either we that think that they should have just made the move and tried to retool and figure things out. Whether we're correct or the Royals are correct. And I mean, 23-24 was a 30-win improvement. Looks much more like a flash in the pan than, any sort of sustained winning. I know they won 82 games last year, but they were not a very good team. And then this year has obviously been a disaster. So you backslid 2 years in a row. You had guys that teams, it seems like they wanted, and you're holding on to them because you feel like you can compete. It's make a break for everybody, man. Everybody. Coaching staff, front office, all of it. And, I mean, there are greater conversations to be had of whether baseball will be played in 2027, that have to take place. But it's just a little puzzling to me, man. I don't know. It feels too much like the late 2010s to me in this case. Because, it's 5:15, and all I'm seeing is looks like Schreiber and Marte are still around. I'm not seeing a buzzer beater. I'm not seeing anything at this point. It looks like a lot of the reporting that's out there now for a lot of teams is that they were done. I don't see, because I'm not seeing anything. It looks like the real buzzer beater was Mize to the Padres, and I don't see anything else. So they didn't trade John Schreiber. They did not trade Starling Marte. They did not trade Daniel Lynch, and obviously they did not trade Michael Wacha or Seth Lugo, and nobody else. So the only real trades that they made selling-wise were Lane Thomas and Chris Bubich. And that's the extent of the deadline for the Kansas City Royals. And I don't think it's done enough. I think Nate said it well. I wish they would have sold and just reset around Vinny, Bobby, Michael, Jack, and Carter. Yeah. The tricky part, to play devil's advocate, and again, I know people may not want to hear this because that would imply that I am, trying to defend the decision of holding on to Wacha, holding on to Bubich, or holding on to Lugo, my apologies. The only difficult part is with all of the injuries as part of why they probably did this. I think that's, whether they want to talk about that or not, I think that does play a factor in that they have so many dudes hurt, they have to have innings from somewhere. That if you do want to say, well, they can just go into free agency and spend, open up the pocketbook, spend money. But the guys that you would go get in free agency are a lot of guys that kind of fall into the bucket of Wacha and Lugo from a couple of years ago. And you're probably going to end up paying more for those guys because of the way that the market has gone. I don't even know if you're counting on him a part of the core. It's just, I don't think the Royals are going to move him when it comes to Vinny. And the injury, you could kind of dispel some of the injury stuff in 24, when it was the hand injury, because that was just bad luck, but it seems like that hamate thing is really lingering and obviously having a major effect. But when you look at starting pitching, obviously Skubal, he's going to go and make a crap ton, as he should. But Sonny Gray, he's 37. And that's a mutual option, so that probably gets declined because it's $30 million. He's not getting that. But he's going to be 37. Michael King, if you wanted to go on Spurgeon, but he's 32. Robbie Ray, unrestricted free agent, but he'll be 35. Zach Gallen, who has not pitched well this year, he's 31. Shota Imanaga is an unrestricted free agent. He'll be 33. Kevin Gossman is an unrestricted free agent. He'll be 36. Shoot, Max Scherzer, crazy. Nick Pivetta has an opt-out. I imagine he ends up opting out because I imagine he'll get more. He's going to be 34. Nick Martinez has a mutual option for $20 million. That'll get declined, but he's 36. Shane Bieber is 32. One of the younger free agents that will actually exist is Brady Singer, but he'll be 30. Clay Holmes has a player option for next year at $12 million. He's probably going to get more than that. He's going to be 33 or 34. Tyler Malley's 32. Just from an age, just when you're looking at like the age perspective, and then you can calculate the money from there. So you're essentially just paying the same amount or more for similar type production. So it may just be the devil you know with Waka and Lugo that you're better off just holding on to that money rather than spending that money on essentially the same thing. But I still think that may be worth the chance, at least because who knows what Waka and Lugo might look like next year. You know, Waka has been as durable as it gets in Kansas City for his 3 years and deserves a lot of credit because that was some of the concern was that he was he'd have an IL stint here and there most years. I think the only one he had in Kansas City was because of a comebacker off his foot. It fractured a bone. He missed a couple of starts and then came back. But he's missed, I think, 3 starts in 3 years for the Royals. But he's going to be 36. Like, who knows with pitchers, right? And Lugo is clearly not the same guy that he was. You know, he smoke and mirrors his way to about a 3 ERA and a second-place Cy Young vote. It was unbelievable. He was well worth the contract. And was well worth the contract up until he signed the extension. And that's when things just derailed. And there were already starting to be some signs of regression before they signed him to the extension last year. And then it just all fell apart at the end of last year. And then he ends up on the shelf. And this year, beginning of the year looked like he had got it figured out. And then it's been underwhelming, to put it nicely, since then. And it's an ERA around 5 since basically for a calendar year now. And are you going to pay? You're going to be paying like $20-something million next year for that. It's not great. And the other, tricky part is that if you bring Lugo back, and I've talked about this before, but it's a vesting option for that third year. So, and I believe the threshold's 140 innings. He hits 140 innings next year. It's a 5.2 ERA or whatever it looks like. Just throwing a number out. Well, then you're on the hook for another $12 million for 2028 with a 38-year-old Seth Lugo. It's a really tough spot. And I do really wonder what offers were out there, how they viewed him and how the league viewed him and how much money the Royals were going to have to eat or send a check for. For that probably colored some of the Seth Lugo stuff. With Waka, I talked about the human side of it, and I know that no one wants to hear that. But, a guy that played for basically 6 teams in 6 years, and then his family, stability with his family and those things, that's some of the stuff you can't quantify. And I understand that it's a business and you got to make business decisions, but that does factor into the business side as well as the people. But I still I'm skeptical that this was the correct process for the way the Royals should have handled this deadline and how we go forward and what the long tail of these decisions will be going into 2027. They have to be right. And if they're not, the consequences will get paid for it. And we'll see what that looks like as a win-loss and other ramifications beyond that. I think that about wraps up my thoughts here. I appreciate everybody that hung out with me for about 50 minutes here, beyond the deadline. Does not look like any other moves were made potentially. Looks like there was one last move. The Cardinals acquired Caleb Ferguson and traded Cincinnati Reds. But again, does not look like any trades were made by the Royals at this point. No last minute moves for Schreiber, Marte, or anything like that. So we'll see what the roster is going to look like here in the next couple of weeks, or next couple of days, even beyond the deadline. And stick with me. Appreciate you guys. And I'll have some more conversation later this week for a regular One Royal Way that'll hit your news feed around 6 a.m. When I record it. We'll talk soon, everybody. Take care.